Hi y'all, it's Freeze Cracked again. Hey, I thought I'd try and take some time to talk a little bit about different kinds of rock. This won't be a selection thing as to how to pick rock and what it should go for and all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to talk about some different types of rock, and I don't have anywhere near a complete representative sampling here. Because I live in a certain part of the country and I don't get offered a lot of different stuff from some places, but anyway, it's a bunch of different things and I'll talk about a little bit and see what you think. But I'm no expert on rock. That's Curtis Smith. He knows all about rock. Anyway, before I do that, I thought I'd show you this. And this is this is an oyster from Texas. And it's a big one, kind of. Basically, it's a Cretaceous oyster. It's not a modern oyster. It's called an Exogyra ponderosa. And they were kind of big back then. Anyway, in no particular order, I'm just going to talk about different kinds of material. So I'll start with the thing closest to me. This right here is a piece of Dacite. Dacite is a rhyolitic, lava flow kind of thing. And I got this in Oregon. You can go out there and there's places where you can get Dacite and Obsidian. Dacite it cooled not quite as much at the surface as the Obsidian, so the granular structure is a little bit bigger, but it's the same stuff. It's rhyolitic. And it naps kind of midway between like glass and novaculite or something. It's easy to nap, but it's not as soft as Obsidian, and I kind of like it. In a way, I like it better than Obsidian, but your mileage may vary. But anyway, there's a couple different kinds. There's some grayer stuff sort of looking, I think, in Arizona. This is actually from Oregon. But there's also what's called black butter Dacite, and black butter is shiny like Obsidian, but it naps more like Dacite, and it's really cool. And a lot of my stuff is in buckets underneath other stuff, and so I didn't grab a piece of black butter to show you, but anyway, it's just like this, only shinier. But I like black butter. Different kinds of Obsidian. This is a type called triple flow, and basically it's 3 different colors. It has some like black in it, it's got clear in it, and then it's got like the reddish blackish mahogany stuff in it, and it's pretty. Obsidian will cut you. You have to be careful just moving buckets around and just handling it. This is sort of a silver sheen. It kind of has like lines in it and they're sort of shiny, and that stuff naps pretty well. I don't know if I can show this because I'm not at the same angle as a camera. I don't know if I can show this in a way that you'll be able to see, but this is what they call rainbow Obsidian. And the rainbow stuff, a lot of times it's certain ways of looking at it in the light, it doesn't have any color to it at all, but at certain angles it can be just absolutely gorgeous. And I've got quite a bit of it. Came from Northern California. But the thing about it is that it naps well as far as Obsidian goes. Some Obsidian is a lot squirrelier than other Obsidian, like for instance stuff like this where it's like a breccia, where it's a mix of stuff that sort of, and here's another piece, it's kind of a mix of stuff that came together and solidified, and it can actually have, even though it's all like glass, it can actually have some texture, if you will, to it, to where it doesn't nap as cleanly and as smoothly as other Obsidian does. And then if you really want to start having problems, there is quite a bit of Obsidian out there that has a lot of ash in it, has a fairly good ash content mixed in with the rhyolitic glass, and it just, the ash content makes the stuff not want to nap as concoidally. It can kind of explode when you hit it sometimes. This is another piece of almost like a cross between sheen and rainbow. There is some rainbow color in it, but it's not a high grade piece. I just like to work this stuff sometimes. The term for this was coined by Tom Dodge out of Arizona, I think, and he calls it Obsidian. It's sort of like a cross between Obsidian and Basalt, and I think it's from northern Arizona. And it naps pretty well. It's a lot tougher than Obsidian, but it's somewhat better at the conchoidal fracture than Basalt, and I sort of like it. I just don't have a whole bunch of it. This is a piece of Basalt, and a lot of Basalt isn't knappable at all. Some of it's just super hard rock. It's rhyolitic too. The stuff pretty much all is in the volcanic stuff, but it cooled lower below the surface, and it's much larger grain structure, and therefore sometimes much harder and doesn't flake well. But there is some that's fine grain enough that it does flake pretty well, but you have to watch it because it's got little phenocrysts. Probably can't see that. It's got little phenocrystic crystals in it, and it also has enough of an ash content and stuff where it's steppy. So you have to really prepare your edges well, and you have to take your flakes definitively because it'll step out on you a lot if you don't. I'm talking too much about each thing. I'm already at 6 minutes, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I guess I can do a couple of these. What the heck? I wouldn't bother trying to knap Snowflake Obsidian. You can, and it does work, but you have to hit pretty good. What it is it's like an old Obsidian that's starting. Obsidian is not a stable, it's not a chemically stable rock. And over time it tends to convert to other minerals, and this has all these little things of cristabalite in there because it's, I guess, old, and the cristabalite doesn't nap conchoidally very well. It's almost like the obsidian equivalent of concrete in some of the Texas rock, so you really have to hit good to make the flakes go through it and look nice. But I have napped it before. Okay, changing off of that subject entirely. This is a weird little regional rock, and I think it's glacial till pushed down into Louisiana from places to the north. So it's pretty old stuff, even though it's found in a more recent formation. But they call it Citronelle, and when it mostly is small, so you get into some pebble tech and stuff trying to nap little pieces of it, but it can be pretty. This is all cooked, and you have a high loss rate because a lot of the little rocks in there, it's a mixture of stuff, and a lot of the little rocks are not good flint, but some of them are very good flint, and it's a cool little regional thing to nap. I enjoy messing with it sometimes. Okay, again, I'm going in no particular order. I'm grabbing a really cool and important rock here. This is Keokuk, which is a variant of Burlington that's found at a slightly different sedimentary level, but it's like a variant of Burlington. And it comes out of northern Oklahoma. And Craig Ratsit has a quarry up there, and he is a really good, and I don't know him personally, but he's really good at spalling. And it turns out some beautiful spalls of this stuff, and it is very consistent in quality, so that if you get a bunch of it from one piece to the next, if you're trying to learn, it's very consistent. It's a little bit steppy at times, but a lot of the white flints, the cherts that have a little bit less pure silica content, can be that way, but it's very nice stuff, and you can make some very nice points out of it. You just have to learn, every rock you deal with, you have to learn what it prefers, whether it likes fast or slow hits, or big or small masses, and the edge preparation, that kind of thing. But this is good stuff, and it's definitely worth trying. It makes some real pretty points. Some of it has, and I don't know if I got a piece, dang, I didn't grab a piece with a bunch of color in it. Some of it has beautiful red spider veins and stuff through it, and some of it has the little red dots of look like seeds after it's heated. But it's good stuff. You would not want to work Burlington of any sort raw very often, unless you can get a really good piece, and there are some really good Burlington raw. But anyway, so what time is it? Okay, we're at 9:50. I'm going to show you this for no particular reason. This is a gorgeous, interesting, brecciated looking piece of Alibates flint from North Texas, and it's full of cracks, so if I were to heat this and try and hit it or whatever, I don't think it would work well at all. I might get a couple of very small points or something out of it, but I just thought I'd show you. Alibates is kind of famous because it was a famous quarry type stone from the old boys' quarries, and basically it's like a agatized dolomite or a dolomitic agate or something. I don't know what the heck it is. It can work well, but it has a problem with being cracked a lot, and everybody wants it, so it's really hard to find or get. I think I have a couple of more pieces of it here. Oh, here's a rock of it. Stuff's cool. I'm gonna put this other piece over there. That's just another little slab of it. People gave me that stuff. I don't know if I'll ever hit it or not. On the topic of interesting and weird, you know, Texas rock comes different ways, and this was referred to as a Texas tortilla, and basically what it is, it's a really thin nodule of chert, of flint. Really thin, and I keep asking myself, do I want to ever do anything with it? Because in a way I thought it'd be cool to do the edges and leave the center all natural and just have edges on it and make a hand axe or something out of it, but I just haven't done it. Speaking of flat Texas nodular stuff, I like to work stuff like this. Actually, I like the stuff that's weirder shaped and all, but this is it's Edward stuff, but it's from the good part of Texas, the counties in the central Texas where the flint is more compliant and nice to work. And this is called tabular flint. Really good stuff. Here's another one. These are higher quality type flints. When somebody tries to sell you Texas rock or something, I mean, there's a huge degree of variability in Texas rock, and some of it is horrible. Speaking of difficult, this nodule here my son brought back to me one time from Central Texas, and you can see, well, I guess you can see, it's a pretty looking root beer type flint. But I can guarantee you that if I were to give this to you and you were to hit it without cooking it a little bit or something, you would swear that Texas flint is completely unknappable, because even though this stuff is nice looking and good crystalline root beer, that stuff is just as hard as nails. You know, it's one of those things that you can't notch it with steel almost, and if you took it and dropped it on the ground, you know, it'd probably break the concrete instead of the rock. Then on the other hand, you have stuff like this. This is a little nodule. They come much bigger, what's called Georgetown flint. And Georgetown also comes in different qualities though, and some of it has some concrete in the middle and actually needs a little bit of heat. But this is the pure flint of Texas, and it works very well raw sometimes. And it's got its own characteristics about how it works, but it's really cool stuff. And I like Georgetown flint quite a bit. It doesn't have a bunch of interesting color. And the stuff that's blue, black, and really pretty, it dries out and oxidizes after you knap it, and like a year later when you go back and look at that gorgeous blue-black point, it's gray. But nonetheless, it's cool stuff, and it's really good, got great tensile strength to the flaking, and it's good for making thin things, andice points and stuff like that. So it's really good rock. Big old long tang knives and stuff like that. Let's see, I got another piece of nodular root beer type stuff here. A lot of the Texas rock does change color though after it's napped for a while. So you take your pictures right after you nap it, because a year or two later it's not going to look the same a lot of the time. The only thing I would tell you is anytime you're getting Texas rock, test every single rock. You know, you got to take a flake off of it to know. And the other thing is Texas rock a lot of the times gets worse in the center. So it's good at times to try, and if you start seeing any concrete showing up or anything like that, you try and work that side down towards the other side, because a lot of times you got great flint just under the cortex between it and the middle, and then when you get to the middle it's bad. So you can start out with great cortex on either side that would have made a wonderful point, and then you work it down to the middle and you got a horrible point. So anyway, All right, well, it's 15 minutes, so I didn't cover much. I talked too much. I always have. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to start again and talk more about rock.